In 2018, my brothers had just moved to college. I hadn't seen them for months, but we had just flown in to Newark Airport, and we were about to take the drive to upstate New York to see them. But as we're driving along those twisting country roads, I saw something that was confusing to 12-year-old me. Union workers picketing outside a meatpacking factory. And although I didn't know it then, unions are far, far more than just picket lines. They are the defining feature of American labor and help protect workers countrywide. But they've been in decline. So, will recent victories by entertainment and manufacturing unions spark a revival of US organized labor? Yes, but we first have to understand the history of US labor, next, what these strikes actually achieved, and finally, what the implications of these strikes and their victories are. Unions are almost as old as this country. They rose to prominence in the 19th century, and over the course of this country have been the defining feature of US labor. They increased living standards and made this country a better place for all. However, as the IEPI finds on November 23rd, 2020, these unions are in sharp decline. The most prominent part of this is during the 1980s and the 1990s. During this time, union members and unions as a whole declined by 25%. What this means is there were 25 less people than usual enrolling in these unions. And this trend continued up until last year. Politico, on January 23rd, 2023, finds that unions were at a historic low in 2022. The decline of US organized labor, though, has had dire consequences. As the IZA finds in 2020, rising income inequality, gender and race inequality, and worse living conditions and working conditions for workers have all been contributed to by the decline of US labor. Unions as a whole protected US laborers, and without them, they're being negatively harmed. US labor as a whole is declining in its safety, prominence, and profitability because of a lack of unions. But far from even just last year, 2023 saw something of a renaissance of organized labor in the US. SAG-AFTRA, an organization representing hundreds of thousands of actors nationwide, saw massive victories. As the Associated Press finds on October 1st, 2023, they got a 7% pay rise, protections from AI drafting their scripts, intellectual property rights, and more. It was a resounding victory, but not an easy one. As SAG-AFTRA themselves report on November 10th, 2023, it took them 4 months, weeks of intense negotiation, and it still only passed with an 86% approval from their members. While it was a hard-fought victory, it was an incredibly important one, and one that was followed up by the United Auto Workers of America. The United Auto Workers struck in 3 major corporations' plants: Stellantis, GM, and Ford. These are the 3 major auto working factories and companies. They rake in billions of dollars. But as Reuters found just yesterday, these unions struck and were incredibly victorious. The United Auto Workers got pay rises of 30% over the next few years, better working conditions, more representation. And as Forbes finds on November 16th, it put the workers above the company. Ford, the first company to come to a deal, is cost $8.5 billion over the next few years because of these negotiations. But it will see what the IZA found, but the opposite. It will help reduce income inequality, race and gender inequality, and make working conditions better. But what are the implications of these incredibly victorious strikes? Well, They're great, and they'll protect the future of American workers for decades to come. The Harvard Business Review finds on October 2nd, 2023, the victories because of these unions came from hardball negotiations, and these set a precedent that companies do have to come to the negotiation. They do have to at some point yield, and they have to put workers first. And it's one that's going to be continually very, very important. As the BBC finds on September 27th, 2023, these sorts of negotiations are important for US labor, and because of them and their victories, US labor unions are going to be more inclined to strike, more inclined to fight for their rights, and overall, more strong and more efficient. They're going to be better for the future of this country, and they're going to fight for the workers that they represent. While I may have not seen the SAG-AFTRA or UAW strikes like I did in 2018, they are nonetheless incredibly important. They're protecting the future of American labor and will result in a renaissance of organized labor in the United States, protecting workers' rights and making this country a safer place for union workers. Thank you.